What's up, everybody? Not gonna lie, I just woke up. But today is episode 79 of the Q&A. So, if you enjoy the Q&A, please consider becoming a supporter on Patreon. Words are hard in the morning. If you'd like to work with me directly, shoot me a DM or an email. You can, you know how to work the internet, I hope. But my email is in the description box on YouTube. And you can just DM me if you're seeing this on Instagram. Also have ebooks in the description box and in the link in my bio on Instagram. Anyway, it's about to be a banger of a training day. As you can tell, I've got a very strong shirt on. So, I look forward to your questions later today. Peace. Does Masteron really help with strength gains? I feel like any steroid is similar, milligram per milligram. So yes, Masteron is going to do a better job at driving the neurological side of the strength equation than testosterone derivatives. However, almost all steroids have ancillary benefits for strength that can be relevant depending on the particular user. For example, oftentimes strength enthusiasts are significantly underweight compared to their frame because they don't do hypertrophy training. So when you put them on something like nandrolone, they puff up with 20 to 30 pounds of water sometimes. Now they're retaining more water, retaining more minerals, retaining more energy substrate, and their leverage is improved and they get stronger. But yes, neurologically, Masteron does help. Thoughts on carb cycling rather than a traditional diet structure? So, there's never been any evidence in the literature that any type of carb cycling or even calorie cycling has significant benefits for body composition or anything else. For years, people have argued, that eating more on training days or alternating between low carb days and high carb days can provide a recomposition effect versus like a straight calorie, straight carb amount approach. And that's never panned out in actual literature. However, in terms of real world practice, one of the benefits of carb cycling is that it can definitely help certain people to match their hunger to the given day. Some people are significantly more hungry on a training day than a non-training day. That's important because mismanaged hunger can lead to failed adherence. And that failed adherence can happen in prep or in off season, right? Some people just can't get all their food down. And so if you use a cyclical approach where there's less food on non-training days, sometimes that gives them a bit of a break, resets the appetite just a bit, or at least it just matches their hunger to the given day. And that can increase adherence and make it easier to have a long, productive off-season. But what about for the people who this confers no psychological or hunger advantages? And in that case, I would say there's pretty much no advantages. This primarily is going to come down to 1, adherence, and 2, what do you prefer psychologically? I have some clients who are like, I have to do something different every single day of the week? Fuck that. And I have other clients who are like, I get to do something different every single day of the week? Yay. It depends what kind of person you are. Do you ever have days where everything just feels awkward and heavier than usual? Yeah, man, that's called when I need a deload. But to be honest, that really stopped happening to me on a regular basis when I switched to bodybuilding from powerlifting. And I don't think it has anything to do with the programming or the training style. It's just that when I switched to bodybuilding, I realized that lifestyle was more important than my program. So now, especially compared to how it was when I was a powerlifter, I eat the exact same thing every single day at the exact same time. I go to bed at the same time, wake up at the same time, drink the same amount of water, and everything is so tightly controlled. That doesn't happen anymore. What is the minimum amount of carbs needed to not negatively affect performance and testosterone production? So your testosterone production has really nothing to do with your carbohydrate intake. That has more to do with your fat intake. It's not really relevant. As far as how much carbs you need to not negatively affect your performance, it really depends on your individual workload. Take somebody like my buddy Trevor who does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu 6 times a week on top of like 10 weight training sessions. He has a super high need for carbs compared to a lot of people. If you're doing like 3 weight sessions a week with 15 sets and they're like relatively low reps, the amount of glycogen you need to refuel is not very much. But I couldn't give you a more precise answer than that because I don't know how you train. The best I can do for you is that most people are going to need somewhere between 200 to 250 grams of carbs just to fuel their brain and regular bodily function. And then you'll probably need something like 5 grams of carbs. That's a generous estimate for every weight training set that you do. So add that all up and it should get you a good minimum estimate. From a muscle preservation point of view, is it problematic to get 40% of your protein from whey? So it's not problematic from a muscle preservation point of view because whey is actually one of the best forms of protein. in terms of bioavailability and all of that. However, it might be a problem for hunger management, because if you're drinking a lot of calories while dieting, you are likely to be very hungry compared to eating actual meat. Just the amount of volume that liquid takes up in your stomach versus, say, a piece of chicken is not comparable. So as long as you're not getting too hungry, it's not a problem, but you might find yourself getting hungry if you get lean enough. Any recommendations for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth? If you have some sort of a gut issue, you need to work with a dietitian, a nutritionist, and just make sure that you go ahead and do an elimination diet, introducing foods one at a time to see what you can handle and what you can't handle. In fact, this is beneficial to almost everybody at some point in their life to figure out which foods they tolerate well and which they don't. But for somebody with one of those types of gut conditions that can be debilitating, it's even more important that you figure out which foods agree with you and which don't. And an elimination diet is the best way to do that. How is your arm doing? I wish you the best. Yeah, so here's the thing. My bicep is 90% torn. The tendon is 90% torn off the bone, and I do need surgery to get it reattached. Here's the problem. The fucking orthopedist office has not gotten back to me in nearly 3 weeks now to get the surgery scheduled. So I am at my wit's end with this ortho. I'm literally at the point where if I don't hear back today by the end of the day, I'm just going to chain call them until someone finally helps me. Because the problem with any tendon injury that needs surgery is that if you wait long enough, it starts to like shrivel up and have scar tissue build, and it becomes difficult or sometimes even impossible to reattach it. This is why sometimes bodybuilders will blow a pec, and if they don't get into the office within like 3 or 4 weeks, it can never be fixed. I'm going on like 6 weeks at this point. It has to be done within the next 2 weeks. So I'm going to figure out a way to make it happen no matter what. At this point, it no longer even hurts. What is the best movement for chest if you could only do one? Man, wouldn't it be helpful if I would just make a video series discussing my personal top picks for the best hypertrophy exercises for every muscle group? Wouldn't that just be something else? That said, man, this is the wrong question. Anybody who's asking this question is looking for ways to do less. You're caught up in a minimalist mindset, and instead of asking yourself, what's the most I can do and still benefit, you're asking what's the least I can get away with, and that is going to show on your physique and in your strength. Hey everybody, I'm having some technical issues with Instagram today, so this answer I just cannot get to play. It's just glitching on Instagram. And in fact, most of the videos today wouldn't save, so I just did a screen recording. That's why the quality is a little bit lower. But anyway, I'm going to try to redo this answer for you guys so that people on YouTube don't miss this one, since people on Instagram got this answer. What are the benefits of doing less exercise variations in a session? So here's the thing, man. Let's say you need 6 sets for optimal chest progress. That's what you've determined. If you're using 6 different exercises to get that done, that means your top 6 chest exercises are being used. What happens when 2 or 3 of them stall? Now you're using your 7th, 8th, and 9th best chest exercise. Not only that, but you've got to move to 6 different benches or 6 different machines, 6 different stations throughout the gym. It's just way too much, and there's no benefit to doing it that way. So overall, yes, there is such a thing as too many variations. Keep it reasonable. Why do you hate Nikola Jokic? He's literally my favorite player in the league. Like, no exceptions, nobody I'm forgetting. Devin Booker and Nikola Jokic, in reverse order there, Jokic 1, Booker 2, are my 2 favorite players in the whole league. So I have no idea where you got this idea at all. How would you change a stiff-legged deadlift to bias the spinal erectors rather than the glutes and the hamstrings? You literally cannot do that. That cannot be done. Think about it. A stiff-legged deadlift or an RDL, you are extending the hips. The spine cannot extend the hips. The primary action being trained in a hip hinge is hip extension. This literally is impossible. If you want your spinal erectors to be more involved, the best thing you can do is to do it from a dead stop off of the ground. And then maybe don't control the eccentric so much, because there's going to be a ton of damage to the hamstrings if you're slowly controlling your eccentric all the way to the floor. But again, there's no way to bias the erectors in a hip hinge movement because you're training your hips. When doing unilateral leg movements, how would you balance the fatigue of the first leg when you do the second leg? So start with the weaker side and then make sure you rest sufficiently between sets. That's pretty much all you can really do. Make sure you rest 3 minutes or so between your sets, and again, start with the weaker side. That way, the weaker side, yes, it might be getting a slightly better stimulus than the side that went second, but you need a better stimulus on the weaker side anyway. That's the best you can do. What rate of weight gain do you recommend for a natty on a bulk? It totally depends on the person, man. The better your genetics are, the better your training is, the more sleep you get, the more you can get away with. That said, I wouldn't really go any slower than half a pound a week because it becomes just too hard to measure whether you're actually in a surplus at that point. I think a pound per week is a little bit too fast unless you're over 200 pounds or enhanced. So I would say generously somewhere between half a pound and 1 pound per week, but shoot for the middle of the range or the lower end of the range. So like 0.75 pounds per week. What is the minimum amount of fat needed for enhanced lifters? So listen, guys, whether you are natural or enhanced, the minimum amount of fat that you need is trace fats. Trace fats from essential fatty acids. If you take a couple fish oil pills a day, that's really all you need. However, some people will feel like shit if they do that because fat intake is closely tied to hormone production. So some people will have a precipitous drop in sex drive, in well-being, or sleep quality. Now, enhanced individuals usually need less because they're producing their sex hormones by injecting them into their ass. So that takes care of a lot of that. And yes, the needs are going to be lower for enhanced people, but they can be very low for naturals as well. This is genetically influenced, but a rough minimum is 0.3 grams per pound of body weight. I'm feeling laterals in my neck. Any form tips or corrections? So your upper traps, your traps are heavily involved in a lateral raise, and I don't think it's really beneficial to try to take your traps out of it. However, one cue that does seem to help a lot of people is when you're doing lateral raises, instead of thinking about just lifting your arm up any way that you can, think about lifting your arms up and out. So scrape your knuckles along the walls or, lift your arm toward the side walls instead of just lifting up. When bench pressing for hypertrophy, does it make sense to use a wider grip because it makes the movement more lengthened bias? No, it does not. And the reason for that is that because, yes, it does improve leverage at lockout and make it easier at lockout, but it also significantly cuts range of motion, meaning that you don't get the chest as long in the first place. So it probably cancels out any benefits there in terms of an improved strength curve. Second, and this is probably the most important factor, we have quite a bit of evidence, and not strong evidence, but there's a ton of anecdotal evidence, individual reports. Coach Kaz from N1 Training has reported on this before, but the vast majority of chest injuries, including blown pecs, happen with people using wider grips. So you probably have a much better chance of staying healthy with a medium or even narrower grip. How far should we lower the bar when doing shoulder pressing for hypertrophy? So the question you got to ask yourself is, why would shoulders be different than any other muscle group? Every other muscle group has basically been shown to benefit from being trained at longer muscle lengths. Why would the shoulders be any different? You should go as low as you can without pain or discomfort and staying within your active range of motion, which means we don't want your shoulder joint tipping at any point in the movement. Full ROM, full development. How many exercises per muscle group is too many on a full body split? So here's the thing, full body can mean so many different things that it's basically impossible to answer this unless we're talking about a particular type of full body program. For example, if I do deadlifts and rows on the same day, which is a very common combination, that's technically hamstrings, glutes, lower back, and the scapular retractors, traps, and lats. That's a full body workout. However, if you're doing a full body workout and similar to the style that I do it, which is where you basically train every single muscle group in the same session, you realistically should not be doing more than one exercise per muscle group, maximum two, because if you need to do more exercises, you can just rotate between exercises in each full body session. If you're training every single muscle group, you're already doing a minimum of 10, maybe 11 exercises per session. And if you're doing multiple exercises per muscle group, your session's gonna last 4 hours. When doing full body workouts, I superset a lot of things, mostly the upper body, but sometimes lower body. Yeah, and this is exactly why I do not recommend doing more than one exercise per muscle group when doing a full body split. If you do something like heavy bench press and then you follow that up with rows, the stimulus that you're getting on your rows is going to be dog compared to if you rested 5 minutes and then did your rows. So you're sacrificing very serious amounts of back gains in order to fit your workout in enough time. So if time is an issue, I just wouldn't do a full body split, or at least consider cutting the exercises down dramatically. When on a full body split, you have to be somewhat of a minimalist if you want to keep the training quality high and not have to use things like supersets. What aspects of your work life do you like and dislike? I think you're already looking at this the wrong way, man. Nobody really overall likes to work. Okay, the whole point of working is to make money, and it tends to be that the better you are at your job, the more satisfaction that you'll get from it, and the more money you'll make from it, and the more tolerable that you're going to find it. But here's the reality. When you ask people on surveys, anywhere from like 75 to 80% plus of people dislike their job. If the vast majority of people had $100 million just socked away in an account somewhere, they would never work again in a capacity for money. Okay? The idea that you're going to find something that you're passionate about and get paid for it at the same time is a fantasy. It's a fantasy. It's for like professional athletes and maybe people like Jane Goodall that get to work with the apes and they get paid for their passion. For the rest of us, get paid and get out. What I would recommend, instead of trying to find fulfillment and purpose in your employment, in your job, is to calculate the exact amount of money that you need to live your preferred lifestyle, and then figure out how you can make that money in as little time worked as possible. And then get really, really good at that skill. Because when you're really, really good at something, it creates a positive feedback loop, and that in and of itself will make you like it more. And that's pretty much the main thing that I like about the things that I do. I'm good at coaching. I'm good at helping people with fitness stuff. I know a lot about it. I've been doing it a long time. I can produce results really reliably. Now, that said, if I had $100 million socked away, I would still help people for free, but not for money. Not for money. And it would be on like an answer by answer basis, not like real coaching where you're on call 24/7. So again, man, don't try to find something you're passionate about. Try to find something you're good at and make a lot of money. All right, folks, that is the end of the Q&A today. If you enjoy the Q&As, please consider becoming a supporter on Patreon. It's $1 a month. If you are interested in working with me directly, I still do have half-price coaching going on. Kona's interested, as you can hear back there. So just send me a DM if you're interested in that on Instagram, or if you're watching this on YouTube, look in the description box for links to the Patreon and my email for coaching inquiries. You can also find links to my ebooks in my bio on IG and in the description box on YouTube. No vote for the video topic tomorrow because I'm going to continue finishing the top 10 exercises for hypertrophy series. So anyways, thank you once again to all of you who participate in the Q&As and make them fun and interesting to answer. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye. Just kidding, one more thing. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe if you haven't already. Like the video if you like the video. And any questions or comments, as per usual, leave them in the comment section below and I will get to them ASAP. And with that said, now you can have a wonderful rest of your day.